Greetings, 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 greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian known not to control everything. Definitely want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody for tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 274. What billionaires think of Bitcoin. So definitely want to do this episode today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. For this episode. This is episode 274. Once again, what billionaires think of Bitcoin. And so we at the Vault engage with high net worth investors, high net worth individuals, trustees at many different levels, whether they're sitting on trusteeship for charities, schools, whether people are sitting on trusteeship for public entities, private entities. So we get to get engaged at the vault with the very unique subsect and sector of the population. Obviously, there are not that many, billionaires walking around. So when you have the opportunity to congregate in the room with them, this conversation does come up about Bitcoin. Everybody likes to ask, obviously, a billionaire, what their thoughts are on Bitcoin. And it varies across the board. We're speaking from what we've heard. Obviously people have selective hearing, so maybe people might have selective hearing even on this episode, but selective hearing, nevertheless, we've sat in a room, we've heard it quoted, we've been in environments time and time again. This is a instrument that has been traded for 5+ years. People could say it's almost a 10-year-old asset, particularly Bitcoin. Appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you're listening live from or where you're tuning in from the replay. Just always feel free to type into the chat so people in the future know, where the listening audience is listening in from. So we've sat in the rooms. I've heard this conversation time and time again. It is a mixed review of what Bitcoin is. When we sit in a room and we hear, billionaires not be too excited, tell you that they have no holdings in the asset class. Now, a lot of the times when you hear or you're sitting in a room with a trustee or a high net worth individual, they usually don't have any holdings in their name because of compliance issues with the assets that they're managing. Traditionally, you're going to see asset managers not hold, assets in personal capacities because of the fact for compliance situations alone. So when we do sit in a room and we still hear them talk about their asset allocation, traditionally it's not going into Bitcoin because they have to be in diversified portfolios that don't always create conflict of interest in their asset holdings. So when we see them holding the dollar, we see a lot of private hedge funds, a lot of private money that is diversified in gold, silver, and then we do talk about them holding cash. A lot of them are sitting on cash. They consider cash as king. Do they only sit on paper? No, they do not. They do not just sit on a paper currency. This isn't an episode about that and why they're okay with either sitting on it or not sitting on it. But when we sit in the rooms and we're hearing the thought process of a Bitcoin versus a dollar, ladies and gentlemen, we could tell you with at least a plus 50%, plus 60%, and we could even go higher with the resounding. Most of the high net worth individual and investors that are sitting in the room, most of them don't even want to waste their time punting with such a small amount of asset holding in something that they are not. Once again, Bitcoin is not regulated. Because it's not regulated, a lot of the high net worth individuals or investors or even billionaires are not holding this asset because it's not regulated. They're in an entire industry where they're holding $1 billion in assets, and those assets are regulated. Whereas in the particular case of the Bitcoin, for them to punt, as they call it, on the long term that one Bitcoin to go to $1 million, why would they even hold five? These are billionaires. $5 million is not going to do much if it, they would like to hold a larger position in such assets. But we see that a lot of the times, a lot of the asset managers, a lot of billionaires, what they think of it is that it's an unregulated industry. Some people say, well, that's good. Some people can say that, but when you're in an environment where you're in a compliance issue continuously and not holding any assets outside of trusteeship, once again, it hasn't been beneficial for most of the billionaires that we've sat in the room with, consensus wise, for them to say that they're holding a Bitcoin in a personal capacity. Once again, in a trusteeship, if the fund is to hold any type of selection, whether it's 1% towards each asset, maybe they go and do that. But ladies and gentlemen, we have not we've heard this over years now, 4 years, 5 years plus, sitting in the rooms right now, especially since the asset has taken off. People are saying, well, what do you think it is? And it's a resounding, we don't have any, we don't have any, we don't have any. And you see that there's still issues in that particular sector. Of course, there's issues in the public sector with the dollar, but when we talk about particularly Bitcoin, when you talk about it being unregulated, a lot of these asset managers, the reason why you're called a great asset manager, a billionaire, is because you know how to manage risk. When there's risks that are uncalculable, particularly in the realm of an asset uh, that is literally completely speculative, has garnered a lot of retail value. But as far as what people call economic value, um, is it a store of money? Because think about it, when you buy a Bitcoin, don't you have to hold it? It's like holding a stake, and the only time you can liquidate is either when you sell part of it off. So this is a true quote unquote asset holding position. It's a what a lot of investors on our side say is passive income. Why? Because you don't realize the gain until you sell it. It's an appreciation. It appreciates from what it looks like on a retail investor side. But when we sit in a room and they're talking about, well, what value does it have for nominal exchange? When we even look at it for nominal exchange, ladies and gentlemen, there are other platforms right now that are creating coins in this particular space and have been doing so for years now, have been developing coins. So the competition is fierce because there are coins that are specific for certain industries. So if you're on an exclusive platform with your coin and no one else can get on that platform, and you have millions of subscribers or billions of subscribers, that coin is exclusive to those people. That gives it economic value because now it's an exchange within a quantifiable environment. You ask the average people, do they have Bitcoin? They feel like they missed out. Billionaires do not feel like they missed out. We've sat in a room, like we say once again, we could name the conferences we've sat at, whether they're national or international conferences, relative to the states. And once again, when you look at who is the majority holder, ladies and gentlemen, you guys can go to the profile of these companies and look and see who is the majority stakeholder in the company. Do you see institutional money trying to develop the technology, or do you see private people that are putting in, what people would say, okay, even if you purchased one coin right now, the price of it is like 24, 23, 24, 20, $25,000. If you're at that place right now, you're buying into a position and holding. But what we see is billionaires say, why get something that it costs more than gold, it costs more than silver, it is an asset so now that is turned into a buy and hold passive position waiting to sell for realized gain. And we sat in a room with billionaires for years and they said, we're not touching it. And right now we see that there is we love this word, it's called fear, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's called, fear. Appreciate New York City for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to New York City. People have fear towards this asset class. Oh, well, it's an asset for the retail investor, the retail speculator. It is. Billionaires are not trying to hold one Bitcoin. The average person is trying to get one Bitcoin at this point. Oh, I just need to get one because they feel like they've missed the wave already again. And then you've seen other players in the space recently get shaken down just by the lack of transparency in the environment. The thing that people praise about the environment, billionaires disdain about it. They actually disdain the fact that they don't know what's going on, who owns it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know who owns the Federal Reserve. Appreciate San Diego for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to San Diego. People say, oh, really? Ladies and gentlemen, they have board on the company of the Federal Reserve, these entities. You can go do research. Who's issuing the coins? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. We were listening to a billionaire the other day. He said, first of all, what happens when someone loses the coin? What happens? He says, is it just lost forever? Because in the crypto space, you have to have the specific code. And if you don't have the specific code, that transfer doesn't happen. These are things that billionaires are thinking about. Not talking about missing a wave, missing an opportunity for a $25,000 bubble, for a $100,000 bubble. So when someone loses the code's lost. People didn't think about that because their code's right and they're getting fractions. Or people are looking to hold minimal amount of it. I'm just going to hold one. Ladies and gentlemen, we met people with hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins before. And a lot of them lost a lot of money. And maybe they're back in that position again where they're holding hundreds of thousands. But remember, there was a fraction of it issued. There was a fraction of it. So what happens when someone loses the value and then loses the code? You don't have it anymore unless you can find it. And if that person doesn't have a specific code from the other specific person, the transaction does not go through. So we were sitting there in a room with billionaires the other day, and they said, you don't know who's moving money over there. You don't know who created it. You don't think it's important to know who created something that they could change at any moment? Why are you allowing such risk into your portfolio? But because this is called wealth stealing at its finest. You don't even know. This is public unregulated instruments. That is the danger in such technology. Oh no, I can't believe that would be so true. That someone can just steal wealth from people like that and it's unregulated. At least you know on the banking side it's regulated. They get smacks on the wrist. Who's policing the crypto right now? Are you willing to lose your life's worth to the market? One that you know was unregulated. You knew this when you walked in, but unsophisticated investors, they want to go into the unregulated market. Why? Because they don't want to play with the big boys in a regulated market where there's rules and constraints and where you have to be in compliance, where you can't have outside investments and investments that the gov hasn't fully done its research on yet. It's a disruptive technology. It's inside of the population. And so now you have a particular case where they're creating law for this. They're looking to create exchange for this. And these so-called, it's like a crowdfunding. They're crowdfunding. Oh no, I can't believe he's saying this today. The billionaires are saying that they don't want to hold any of the Bitcoin. Why would they want to hold one or two? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a different environment now when we talk about asset holdings. And when people look at these things and they're actually publicly media display things as though a Bitcoin is more valuable than gold. The Vault listeners, they know about this conversation piece. It's an industrial metal. They use gold in astronauts' spacesuits. They use it on the spaceship and the spacesuits. They use Bitcoins in space yet? No. There is economic and tangible value for such asset. It's traded. It has to be dug up from the ground. It has to be transported. It has to be put into a shape or form and given to people. There is a cost and a value chain associated with it. What is the value chain of a Bitcoin? This is what the billionaires are saying in the room. What is the value chain? It goes from end user, which usually, in order for you to even get money on the exchanges, you have to leave a bank. These people say, oh, we're going to help you digitize the money. How are they helping you digitize the money when you have to use the original substance comes from hard cash? When we say hard cash, you know about those zeros in the bank account. They have to go over to the Bitcoin and give it value from dollars first, or rupees, or rand, or whatever country is allowed to actually purchase into that. Because not every country is allowed to purchase these speculative assets. When you look back years from now, you say, wow, they were stealing people's wealth because people lost their code on the coin. If you lose the code, you lose the coin. Did you know that? How are you going to recover it? They have some platforms that you can keep it in specific keys, but ladies and gentlemen, when you understand the technology, these things are encrypted with over 13 letter sequential specific numbers. You have to have that on that particular device. They like to tie it to a thing they call the key. And keys aren't always floating in the cloud. Keys are like a storehouse. It stores information. You hold it on the key, ladies and gentlemen. Some people like to think of it as a hard thumb drive. But think about it. When you leave it in the cloud, you have to put it in a key. It has a key. It is a key. And these are the numbers that if it's not on that entity and you don't have it, you don't have it. Especially if it's in a hard situation. It was interesting and good to sit around the billionaires, for years now, talk about what they think of Bitcoin. Because we haven't seen a lot of them allocate money to the crypto sector. We see people that their portfolios are diversified in maybe some technology companies that are putting that a part of their business plan, creating some type of loyalty program with the internal coin, things of that nature. But that's the stretch of it, ladies and gentlemen. If Bitcoin was the technology play, ladies and gentlemen, we would have seen it introduced as some of the bigger Fortune 500s. You've heard of Facebook trying to create the Libra. They were actually blocked by the government, supposedly, to introduce such a coin called Libra. So when you look into now other companies trying to create some type of internal reward coin, this is very much so experimentation at its finest. The technology is being introduced, and you're starting to see it. I think, coming from a trust Christian, own nothing, control everything perspective, we can see that a lot of the billionaires are old timers. That's maybe why you see a Facebook pushing the needle with that, because they're a little bit more younger and innovative. Whereas a lot of the billionaires are old timers. They're a lot older in their asset management, asset allocation. They've seen 2000s. They saw the roaring 2000s and the bubble of 2000 for technology stock. They've seen these type of bubbles. A lot of people have sold off their positions sometimes in tech. But what we see is that a lot of them are just older and they're not putting their entire stock inside of a Facebook when they know that these companies are disposable. Um, they know this. They know that these companies are trendy. They know that these companies are fashionable. They call them pigs with lipstick on. And they're okay to slaughter them too. They're willing to puff up a company to 100, to literally $1 billion company, let alone to $100 billion company, and dispose of it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the era of $1 trillion asset management allocation, whether we know it or not. Billionaires are pretty much going to have to make that jump to trillionaires, because we are in the realm of $1 trillion asset under management. We've been there for years, but you all can see $1 trillion assets under management, and so why would trillionaires be allocating capital towards watering pots such as Bitcoin when there's limited amount of quantity? They have a lot of upside and downside risk, not knowing who is able to come in and rechange the rules for that particular unregulated market. And we've seen this for years now, where that's what they've been on. We've seen this for years. It's a funny story. It's always a quick question. It goes by. A lot of them just end up saying no. And why would you want to be known as the billionaire that is in a regulated industry, really okay with compliance, and then you're doing side punning with assets that literally within a 8 or 12 month period, it grows 400%. These guys would much rather hold a Tesla. They would much rather hold Amazon. They would much rather hold Apple. They would much rather hold these companies as a regulated asset that is going to grow 300, 400%. When think about it, if you're stuck in a house and the only company that's dropping a phone is Apple, and they've had a long-standing history, hopefully they can bring out something new that can engage customers, where people are feeling like, hey, if I can buy anything new, let me go buy a new phone. Where the age is cell phone mentality. Let me go buy a new phone. It's a tradition for people to go buy a new cell phone on Christmas. So of course they got a increased in revenue throughout the year, or their anticipation of, or the fact that they have brand loyalty. One of the few American companies that has a huge brand loyalty. Well, how many people have brand loyalty with Bitcoin that were a part of the wave 2 and 3 years ago, but they're not part of the wave now? They got wiped out of wealth, what little bit they had of it. And we saw people that had hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins. Hundreds of thousands, ladies and gentlemen. You don't even want to know if we ran into somebody that said, oh, they had a million Bitcoins. What difference did it make? What difference did it make? And now, there's this so-called rise again. Ladies and gentlemen, within a quick flash in a hurry, less than a quote-unquote 18-month period, 2-year period, it's back to its previous high without any news of the technology getting better, the business model getting better. It's just all of a sudden receiving an influx and asset appreciation. And this is how billionaires are not touching it. Some people say, we would like to know which ones are. Oh, we're going to go get some millionaires to get in there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you lose the key as a millionaire, there's no difference for you than somebody that put in $32,000 and they made $100,000. This is something that has a really good media marketing campaign for an asset that literally is stealing wealth from people. And it's sort of like, well, did the government not give you the warning that it was a Ponzi scheme? Did they not give the warning already? Maybe they didn't. And this is why we see the asset in a position that it's in. It's some people don't want to hear that the vault says it's worse than gold. It's worse than these other assets. How? It's moving off pure speculation. It's moving off of pure FOMO, fear of missing out. Why would a billionaire be missing out on an asset that Literally was it wasn't even exist. It didn't even exist 15 years ago. Why would the billionaire not have a diversified portfolio in gold, in car companies, in banks? Why would they not have a diversified portfolio as opposed to being allocated towards an asset that they cannot completely explain what it is in their respect? They just say they stay away from it. What billionaires think of Bitcoin? That's what they think. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. We had to do this episode. We're gonna do an episode about how it's not money. You know, it's literally like a PayPal. You know, it's just you put some money in, you transfer it, and you can transfer to other people. This is this so-called peer-to-peer platform. Well, isn't PayPal like that? Right. PayPal at least tried to go public and be regulated. This asset's hiding out on CoinMarketCap, saying that they have hundreds of billions of dollars allocated towards this so-called asset, but they won't go. They said that they're worth almost as much as Tesla. Right? Oh, CoinMarketCap or this Bitcoin. We have billions of dollars in asset. What is the market cap for Bitcoin? Oh, we have $100 billion. So you're worth $100 billion, and you haven't decided to go public yet. These are the enormous, crazy valuations that these companies, these tech companies, are getting on the public side. They're getting valuation with no substance. They have a form. It's a straight visionary. It's crazy. You're seeing mad scientists put up these crazy ideas, and the general public is willing to fund it until private investors say, okay, we're going to take over this, which institutions are the largest holders of Fortune 500 companies. So they would be the largest holder of this asset because it's a quality asset. But oh no. Do we see that? How many people can type into the chat? Oh yeah, I know how much the bank is holding or institutional money is in Bitcoin. I know how much money was institutionally in Ripple. I know how much money was in these assets. Who do you think is the billionaire asset manager? They're working at the bank. They're the ones allocating the billions of dollars to these companies. And think about the technology. Is it just the fact that they're older and they're lacking the ingenuity to bring in such radical ideas into a company right now and implement strategy? Or are we looking and seeing the fact that they literally, you're managing $1 billion for a reason, buddy. I got to give you the credit. Or lady, you're managing $1 billion for a reason. So you're not dumb. You're not stupid. So when it comes to saying asset management and risk management, they clearly can manage risk. They've multiplied outside of the odds being against them. Not only have they grew funds, they've multiplied funds. So this asset in particular that is being labeled as such, literally we're seeing a different type of world nowadays. It's crazy to see that, people have such a FOMO, a fear of missing out on such topics. They feel like they're missing out, or it's being posted every day. Oh, this asset's growing every day. Is your house growing every single day? Is gold growing every single day? Is silver growing every single day? Is the collectible art that you hold growing every single day? Are the collectible cars that you're holding going up in value every single day? Are the pearls, the diamonds, the rubies, are those things growing in value every single day? Oh, this one's growing. It's growing at an exponential rate. What about those other ones? The ones that the other ones you're holding, did they lose hundreds of percents recently, or have they just held a speculative market value? And we know trustees are holding hard tangible assets such as a gold and silver. The trustees that listen to the vault and move forward with training. That's the first thing you learn in trusteeship is What's real money? What's considered a hold and store of value? Did you hear that? A hold and store of value. We get people that come to the vault all the time. They get panicky. Oh, they're panicky. They're fidgety. Oh man, the dollar's going to lose value, Trust Christian. Is the dollar going to fall through the roof? Ladies and gentlemen, if you live in America, you live in the best country considered to be in the world. If it would be different if China was allowing people to trade Chinese money, yuan. They're not. You can't trade yuan if you're an American citizen or if you're in the United States. And their currency is outrightly known as manipulated. Now, people say, well, what about the dollar? The dollar isn't manipulated. We're going to stick to the fact that the dollar is traded. So that means they can trade that country's name, and it's being traded around the world. Now, how many countries are you trading their money in your country? Because other countries trade dollars outside of their own currency. But, oh no, we got this whole argument. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, we have no problem with saying this in the public. It's called fear. And we're going to incite you with the fact that the dollar's going to fall out the sky and that you're going to miss out on Bitcoin. These are the narratives of fear. It doesn't breed proper asset allocation or risk management skills. But hey, people say, well, what do the billionaires think of Bitcoin? They don't think that it's even worth having a conversation too long. Do they like the technology? Do they like the encryption? Yes, but for what it's being used for right now, they're very unaware of. What is the purpose of it when they're not using it in big banks? They have the money to develop the technology. It's a different world out there, ladies and gentlemen, with this whole, the dollar's going to lose its value, all this other stuff. If there's trillion-dollar companies, there's trillion-dollar cultures. We're in the trillions now, ladies and gentlemen. Billions is an afterthought. We've seen American companies go for the trillions first. We see billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies in other countries as well. So the billionaire space is getting a little crowded. But they're coming from these crazy valuations from these tech companies. Particularly Bitcoin is a tech company, and this company, it literally is not even working with maybe even a workforce. Like it's a so-called software platform, and people are literally doing business transactions on it privately, and nothing's being regulated. And people think that this is something worth really allocating assets to. When who works for Bitcoin? People don't work for the company. It's a software. So we're starting to see holes in the as we get more and more information about this hodgepodge. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people that literally, they are called internet marketers. They are selling to people, oh, buy this thing. It's an asset. Okay. Did you ever hold a Bitcoin in your hand? No, you can hold gold. You can hold the art. If the art gets burned, it still got value. If you lose the key, it doesn't have any value. The code is gone forever. We haven't had anyone type into the chat yet, other than knowing that there's a cloud key system, but most of the time it is a hard key system. Type it into the chat saying that otherwise you can recover a key. The key is transactional. It's just for that one transaction. It'll never be the same again. So how is it that people are going to say, well, there isn't a wealth transfer or wealth stealing happening, when if you lose the key, you lost it forever until you find the key, and you got to know how to log back in. There's passwords. There's encryptions. One of the fastest ways to take wealth out of the population. Billions of dollars is being taken out of the population right now. And this is why countries are going to go to more of a digital currency, because of these type of operations where someone can create code, say that they're anonymous, not be accountable for their virus type product, and literally steal people's wealth. The same people that are holding Bitcoin now was not the first wave that held it and got rich. They're poor. We're sitting in a room with billionaires, ladies and gentlemen. We don't need to sit here and try to play games with you. The billionaires are still sitting in a room. The people that came in there, I mean, they were rich. We seen it. These fools were living high on the hog. And now they're in bankruptcy. But why won't you fear that message? Well, Trust Christian, it's going to go up. It's been going up. It's going to keep going up, Trust Christian. What about the value in you? Did you invest $25,000 in your private education yet? Did you invest $24,000? Did you invest $23,000? Did you invest $20,000 in your private education yet? Because what if you knew that's how much your freedom key cost, was $20,000? And it doesn't stop there, but it starts there. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to share. Reach out, Christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian@trustchristian.com. That's the email you can reach out for consultations. But these are the conversations that we have in the rooms with the billionaires and mentors and gentlemen and women that are sitting in the room, and they've been asked this question from stage many times. Are you holding some type of cryptocurrency? Are you holding this so-called asset? And we've yet to hear any of them say that they are holding it, and most of the times they pretty much deflect it by a complete compliance issue conversation. And billionaires are definitely not trying to get known as somebody that's trading on the black market, where if you have a bank account, you're not supposed to be trading this. And we've seen bank accounts time after time again get shut down because they're getting checks from CoinMarketCap, and the bank says, we don't mess with CoinMarketCap, we don't mess with the cryptocurrencies. There are many banks on the public side that say we do not allow people to deposit money in this bank from a cryptocurrency exchange. And people say, well, okay, that may be true, right? So billionaires are aware of this as well. Now, granted, they would be the ones that could be a lot more nimble in the private wealth transferring and private allocation if they can hold on to it. But once again, this is one of those environments, ladies and gentlemen, that you all can see compliance can terrorize someone that has $1 billion. They don't need to get anything frozen if you're a billionaire. It's called a risk manager. They don't risk that type of risk. They're not risking going into a speculative, unregulated market when they're in a regulated market that says we're still managing $1 billion plus. So no, we're not going to do that. It's a compliance issue. So we appreciate sharing this with you all today. You can think likewise now and wonder, okay, if the billionaire is doing this for compliance issues, why wouldn't I? Because people are poor-minded. They're called what? Unsophisticated investors. They're called unaccredited investors. Do you see why, if you are an accredited investor, you're considered a sophisticated investor, ladies and gentlemen? Because you understand how to manage risk. No, you're not going to go punt. You're actually going to learn how to manage risk in your entire life, and that includes managing it in a monetary sense. So in turn, Bitcoin is not money. It's of no value. You kick yourself over hard tangible assets. But why do people fear of missing out on an asset? Because they're poor-minded. They don't think that they're going to get enough money to beat the returns of that particular market. But that's not true. This is the poor people wealth stealing play right here. You get people that feel like they're coming from behind on the asset. They're not working from a position of power. They're working from a position of losing and from behind. This is how you steal poor people's money. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Christian@trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Peace.